Okay, so this is part one of my Tekno EB48 SL build series. So I got this kit last weekend in preparation for the upcoming outdoor season. Basically, the backstory is I don't really want to run four-wheel drive short course anymore outdoors. Plus, that class is kind of dead around the tracks where I normally race. So there's not much point running it anyway. But I have seen in the indoor season these super lights sort of rise in popularity. And initially I was thinking of getting like a low-C four-wheel short course and converting it with the MIP conversion kit to a super light buggy, but I figured that would be pretty expensive to buy basically two kits to do one job. So I had heard about the Tekno EB48 SL. It's basically their A-scale buggy lightened up to something that's more like a four-wheel short course kind of weight, and it uses four-wheel drive short course electronics, so a 2S battery pack and four-wheel short course motors, etc. So basically I could just take all the electronics from my SC10 4x4 and put it in this, and it should be ready to go. If you look back at my video history, like way back, I did have a Hot Bodies VE8 A-scale buggy. I had it for a little while. I used it mostly as a basher. I only got to race it once or twice. It was a nice buggy, but I never got to use it, so I got rid of it. And this basically is to replace that. So anyway, enough story time. I went through the first few bags of the build, which is basically just assembling the center diff and the front and rear diffs. The instructions are pretty good overall. I mean, obviously I've only gone this far, but I looked through the instructions and they're very nicely worded. The diagrams are nice. You know, there's nothing really to complain about here. As far as the diffs go, so you start with the center diff and then you do the front and rear. All of the parts are pretty much the same, like all of the outdrives, the seals, the sun gears, everything, they're all the same exact part, with the exception perhaps of the diff housing. The front and rear diffs are exactly the same, but the center diff is a little different because instead of applying your bevel gear on the outside, you apply spur gear on the outside, but otherwise I think the parts are the same. One thing to note, well, there are actually two things to note. During the build, when you fill the diff with oil, it tells you to leave 1 millimeter of space between the top surface of the diff fluid and the top of the gear casing. Now that's fine enough, but the problem is, unless you can find a way to actually measure that out yourself, you're kind of screwed, because the actual inside of the diff casing, the molding doesn't have like a slot or anything indicating where that line is. So you have to sort of guess, and sometimes you guess wrong, sometimes you overfill it, and so then when you put the actual, you know, the casing together, some of the oil will seep out through the screw holes, and then your hands get all oily when you screw everything together. It's not a huge problem, it's just, you know, it would be nice if they gave you a line, basically, as like a marker line for the diff oil. Just a little tip, when you fill the diff fluid, or the diff with diff oil, make sure that when you fill it up, you first spin this back outdrive out a little bit to help the diff oil get down and in under the gears, because otherwise if you don't do that and you fill the oil, you'll have an artificially high level. So rotate the gears a little bit, let the oil set in, and then you'll see the level of the oil drop a little, and then just refill up to the appropriate level. Let the air bubbles get out, and then, you know, seal it together. Also, make sure not to forget to put these bearings on before inserting the outdrives. I forgot to do that on the front and rear diffs because I was just kind of in a hurry. So then I had to tear the whole thing apart to replace these bearings. But, you know, it's a pretty straightforward build as far as gear diffs go. Nothing too out of the ordinary. One thing that I want to mention is, so the front and rear diffs on both sides of the housing, the part where the outdrive slots through is metal. It's basically a metal bushing, and that's what this outdrive rotates around in order to interact with the internals of the diff. And that's fine. And on the center diff, your spur gear is a molded plastic. It's kind of a hard plastic, but it's plastic nonetheless. And as a result of that, on this side of the center diff, the outdrive slots through basically a plastic bushing, a molded plastic bushing, which is part of this whole spur gear assembly, rather than a metal bushing, which is on the other side of the housing here. So it's not apparent to me yet which side of this will wear out faster. Maybe the metal side will wear out because you have metal on metal grinding. Maybe the plastic will wear out because plastic is softer than metal, despite the fact that you have metal on plastic grinding, which is generally better for wear. So we'll just have to see which side slops out first. I know on the SC10 4x4, the housing had little bronze bushing inserts, and those bushings slopped out very fast. And that ended up in the outdrives being able to move around even though they were supposed to be seated in place. And that resulted in the internal diff gears not meshing properly, and you would get grinding of those gears under hard acceleration. There was a fix later on with a better bushing, and you could put some spacers in there and stuff to really tighten it up, but that really inhibited the diff action. So I'm hoping that these will be better. Basically, this whole kit is their four-wheel drive short course kit that's just converted into a buggy. So everything that you would do to build the diffs and the gearboxes and everything, it's almost exactly the same as with their four-wheel drive short course. Same exact thing. You're just putting a buggy body on it and buggy wheels and all that stuff. So this is where I am right now. The next step is to put together the front gearbox. And of course, you know, I'll make videos throughout this build series. Quick note about the kit. Comes with a nice big fat wing, molded white wing. Stickers, all the parts you need, all the oils you need to complete the build, including the shock oil and the diff oils, plus thread lock and black grease. The diff oils, it comes with enough oil to do your diff builds, plus a little bit extra. You get about the same volume, I think, of 5,000 and 7,000 weight oil. But your center diff and the front diff call for 7,000 weight oil for the factory setup, and the rear diff calls for 5,000 weight oil. So you're using 1 volume's worth of 5,000 weight oil and 2 volumes worth of 7,000 weight oil to do the build. So you have a little bit less 7,000 weight oil than you will 5,000 weight oil when you're done building the diffs. But you know, this is just for the build anyway. You can go and get a bigger bottle of diff oil later. It comes with a body. I have that elsewhere right now. I'm going to paint that later. It does not come with wheels and tires. You have to get those yourself. And all A-scale wheels are the same size and offset and everything, so that's not a problem. It also does not come with a pinion gear. This uses Mod 1 pinion gears, so you got to go pick those up. Yeah, so I think that's it as far as what it does and doesn't come with. Let's see. That's pretty much it. One thing to note about building A-scale vehicles, which this is basically you could call it a short course, a four-wheel short course vehicle, or you call it an A-scale chassis. They're basically the same size. But these size chassis tend to use bigger screws, longer screws, more of them, and harder plastics. When I built my Hot Bodies VE8, my hands were pretty much broken because I was doing it by hand with, you know, just huddy wrenches here. And it really eats your hands up. I had thought about getting a power screwdriver to do this build, but I didn't think it was worth the investment just to build a kit. You know, I'm perfectly fine doing it by hand, even if it hurts a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of, you know, grind it out and get through this. Yeah, so that's it for now, and I'll make another video soon. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.